Sometimes things just go sideways, and you are going to come off looking less than professional with your clients. Your first instinct might be to cover your ass, but I'm here to tell you, as kindergartner as it might seem, honesty is usually the best policy. We're going to talk about that, as well as look at an intrigue cue using primarily stock Logic sounds on my week 33 vlog check-in. What is happening? This is Dave Croft. I hope you are doing well today. Thank you very much for joining me for my week 33 check-in. This is my 52 Cues vlog where I am committing to talking about the cues that I've written for the entire year, and I am writing at least one cue per week for the entire year. Talking about what's going on in the industry, what's going on professionally, either in my life or answering questions. But if you want to skip over the vlog business and get on to the cue breakdown, which we're going to be looking at this cue called Puzzle and a Paradox, which I wrote last week, then you can check out the timestamp in the description below. Several things actually going on the channel here coming up. This Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, that's August 27th, I am doing another Feedback Friday. This is the third Feedback Friday. We're pretty full, but if you want to join us over at the 52 Cues Facebook group, you can join up and get kind of put. It's not really on a waiting list. If we get through everybody, then we'll have time for everybody. But you can submit a cue, and I will give feedback live during that live stream. Speaking of live stream, if you've been around the channel, you've heard me talk about the Patreon live stream that I do every single week. Well, next Friday, September 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern, I am doing a preview for the entire channel. So if you've ever been curious about what those live streams are like and seeing my compositional process, then I'd encourage you to join us next Friday, September 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern, where I will be writing a cue from scratch. And this is available not to just patrons, but to anybody out there who wants to join. Also, one other item is if you've ever wanted to listen to the vlog on the go, maybe in your commute or during your workout or whatever, I am now offering this vlog as a podcast stream. So you can find us on Spotify. I'm also on Soundcloud, as well as you can paste the link itself into whatever podcast app that you choose. Having some kind of hinkiness with iTunes but what I'm doing is I'm pulling the audio from this very video and putting it out as a podcast feed. So you can check that out if you like to listen to these, or if you would like to listen to these instead of watching the videos. I know I am an avid podcast consumer as well as audiobooks. I think that comes from being a composer and a professional musician. When I'm not actively making music or studying music, for referencing or whatever, I find myself not listening to a ton of music recreationally. So I tend to consume a lot of spoken word content. All of those links and everything will be in the description below. And before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon patrons whose financial support helped make this channel possible. We're going to have more about the Patreon at the end of the video, so please stick around for that. So what I'm talking about today, it seems so obvious, right? You learn it in grade school. Honesty is the best policy. And I just want to kind of share the story of what's gone on here in the studio this week. For several months, I have had booked a recording session with an author who I also do podcast production for, and she is recording her own audiobook. And so if you've ever done any audiobook production, it can be pretty intense. You can't hide behind reverbs. You can't, bury room tone and maybe some inconsistencies like in the mix. And it's just raw audio, which needs to sound as natural and unaffected as possible. It's why I have a vocal booth set up. You really can't see it, but there's a little vocal booth set up in the studio. That's why you can't see the chair and the light and everything. And so I've had this session booked for months. We're doing 2 4-hour blocks on a weekend for 3 weekends. The author's driving up from South Florida to be here. And so the first session was last weekend. Okay. My studio, so I'll put a pin in that. This studio is in a bonus room above a garage, which I think I've talked about on the channel before. The previous owner, this was a movie room, and so there's like a camera and all that stuff. I didn't install it, but it was already here, so that's very cool. It's a really great space. It's above a garage, so noise is less of an issue as far as for the rest of the house. But because it's above the garage, that means that it can be the hottest room in the house. All of the heat from the garage kind of radiates through the floors. It's on its own air conditioning system, which controls this room and a couple of other rooms in the house. It's all kind of on one side of the house. Because when you live in Florida, sometimes just having one AC unit in a home isn't enough. So we actually have 2 air conditioning units, one for the main house and then the other for this bonus room and a couple of other bedrooms. Over the last several weeks, I've noticed that in the afternoon that the air conditioning kind of had trouble keeping up. Right? I would have it set on 75 or 76, and it would kind of get into 77, 78, 79, but it was never really bad. And I just thought, hey, it's Florida, it's hot. I'm in a bonus room above a garage, and that's just kind of how it goes. And so fast forward, you could probably see where this is going. Fast forward to Saturday, the first session, and I've got like everything out for the client. I went and got her the tea and the honey that she wants for the recording session, and so the whole spread is there. She gets here, we start recording the session, and I'm just noticing it getting incrementally warmer throughout the day. So again, a 4-hour block. We started at 11 in the morning, going until 3 in the afternoon. Going well. It's going really, really well. And we get done, and it's about 81 in the studio. But it's a cooler 81, but okay. I'm like, okay, it's just the normal kind of heat in the day that happens in the studio sometimes. All right. So next morning, I come up to check the studio, and at, I guess it was 8 in the morning, it was already 86 degrees in the studio. And I'm thinking, oh no, I think the air conditioning is out. And so I texted the client. I said, just a heads up that it might be warm in the studio, dress appropriately. I go off to church. I call in the air conditioning emergency number, hoping for a call back all throughout church. Like I've got my phone, like I'm on stage playing drums, like keeping an eye on my phone just in case they call, because the client's coming back on Sunday, the next day, originally at 4:00. We had moved that up till 2:00 to hopefully get less of the afternoon sun, so that if it was warm and we could have less in the absolute hottest part of the day, because it was just going to get hotter. And so I don't receive a call from the AC people. Come home from church, and I check the temp, and it's like 94 degrees in this studio. And so I texted her, and I just said, I don't think we can record today. I don't think we can record. And I was beside myself in apology, because I knew that she had taken a special trip. She had come up, stayed with family. She used to live in Orlando. She'd come up, stayed with friends on the other side of Orlando, so another hour past Orlando. So overall, it was a 3-hour trip. And she was super understanding, but I felt within me that it felt super unprofessional that I had to cancel this recording session. especially knowing that we only have a total of 6 sessions over the course of 3 weekends, and it's about a 12-hour book, and we really didn't have tons of wiggle room in our time. So I am just beside myself. And I just was honest with her. I just told her the air conditioning's out in the studio. I have no idea why, and I've called in the emergency number. I've not heard back from them, but now we have to make arrangements moving forward. How and I asked her, how would you like to proceed? Here are some suggestions as far as makeup days and maybe having her come in on Friday. And so she was super understanding, but I felt within me at first, when it first happened, because it felt so unprofessional, I felt within me like, what, how can I make this not really seem like my fault? And I know that's completely irrational, but it made me think back to other times when maybe I had made a bonehead mistake, and it would be just so much easier if I could, for lack of a better word, just kind of lie or make up an excuse to the client who may or may not ever know better, and try to save a little face. And I'm here to tell you that I don't think that ever works out. For a couple of reasons. First of all, once you get caught up into that, then you're finding yourself kind of having to perpetuate that. And I don't think it's good energy to put out into the universe. You can call it karma or whatever, but it's just not good energy to put out there. And if you are honest with the client, even if you messed up, now with this AC stuff, I didn't mess anything. It's not like I sabotaged my AC just to keep from doing a recording session, or it's not like I made up a story about my air conditioning being out just so she wouldn't have to. Right? That's not what it was. But there have been times in the past when I felt myself resisting that urge, like, I've messed up and I don't want to look unprofessional, and I'm going to make something up, make up an excuse to try to save some face, and I don't think that's a good idea. Like I said, for karmic reasons, if you want to think that way. But most clients, they're people too, and they realize that life happens, that things happen, and even mistakes happen. And if you own something with a client, own up to it, then I have found, in my experience, while they might be disappointed, and I'm sure this author was disappointed in not getting able to record. But they might be disappointed, but I think they're going to respect you more through it if you're just honest with them. I see it in my students as well. I see students will tell me something, and, well, an example. I turned this in, but for whatever reason, the file didn't upload. So will you take this late? I started my upload at 10 o'clock. Will you take this late? And that puts me into, I call it CSI mode, right? Because, I have a late acceptance policy, or a late work policy and extensions and all of that. Because, making deadlines is really important in the industry. So I try to instill that in my students by having a relatively intense, like, deadline policy. So what happens is I get the file and I open up, like, their Logic session or something, and I look at the timestamp in Logic. I look at the undo history. I can look in the LMS, the learning management system, and I can see when they've logged in. And I can tell all those things, which puts me in the crummy position of having to, like, call them on it. when I have figured out that they're not being truthful. They're not being truthful with me. And so that makes me feel like the bad guy. And I have to kind of like call them out on it. And it makes me, I don't want to say that well, I will say that it erodes my respect for that student professionally. I'm going to treat them fairly and all of that. And I understand the compulsion to try to cover your ass. I understand that. But when you get kind of exposed through that, then that is way more damaging to the relationship than missing a deadline or than making a mistake or having the air conditioning go out. It's significantly more damaging to have all of that unravel, have all of those excuses unravel. That's significantly more damaging to a relationship than like any mistake, because that is a trust thing, and that erodes the trust that the client is going to have in you. Making a mistake, that doesn't necessarily erode trust. Lying about a mistake, that will completely undermine their trust in you. So, imagine that you're back in kindergarten and you've been caught doing whatever, and you have the option. You're at the crossroads. I can either try to make an excuse to potentially save my ego or what I feel like is my reputation, or I can own it, come clean about, what's going on, be completely transparent and honest, and then move the relationship forward from there from a baseline of honesty and trust, as opposed to like just trying to save a little bit of face. I'd love to hear your stories. Have you been given an opportunity where you could have easily and maybe never been discovered that you kind of had to fib or stretch the truth or to cover your own ass so that you didn't come off looking unprofessional? I'd love to hear your stories. Now, as a footnote, I did get the air conditioning fixed. They ended up coming on Monday, and it's a cool 75 degrees here in the studio. And so I'm really, really happy. And I texted the client and I said, hey, AC's fixed. We are good to go. Whatever you need to do, I am here to help you with your audiobook. And I'm here to do what I can within my abilities to kind of make this right. But I didn't need to keep flogging myself for that air conditioning going out. Yeah. So with all that said, let's now take an opportunity to check out Puzzle and a Paradox. This is an intrigue tension cue that I wrote recently using nearly all stock Logic sounds. The only non-stock sounds are recorded sounds. There is some suspended cymbal, some cymbal effects, as well as a guitar, an acoustic guitar tuned way down. But let's take a listen, and then we'll talk about Puzzle and a Paradox on the other side. puzzle and a paradox. And one of the things that I wanted to do with this cue is use primarily only stock logic sounds, with the exception of two things. Some cymbal effects that I added by doing a suspended cymbal roll, and a bowed cymbal effects, and some shakers. And I actually want to start with these shakers. Now you'll notice that the shakers are labeled cloves and salt. That's because you can get really good shaker sounds by using objects you have. And that's one of the things I really believe is recording something on every track. Just putting some sort of recorded layer. I think it really helps to add to authenticity. So what I have first here is a salt shaker, or salt in a shaker. Now this specifically is garlic salt, but I also recently made this. This is a Tic Tac. Like the new Tic Tac bottles are really, really big. It's not like the little square guys anymore. So these really big canisters, if you will, just Tic Tac. Specifically, these were Coca-Cola Tic Tacs, which is an abomination of nature that I didn't know that I wanted in my life. But they are really good. Coca-Cola flavored Tic Tacs are really good. And with some kosher salt in it, or turn it sideways. And because it's so, the opening is big enough that I can swap that out for like chia seeds or rice or ball bearings or something like that. So making a salt shaker, or if you have, a prescription bottle, just put something in that, Tylenol, whatever. Spices work really, really well. And so I have a salt shaker, which is garlic salt. And then I have a spice jar of cloves, which sounds a little bit more rattly. So those work out really well, and I layered them together. Yeah, I was really, really, really happy with these, and just goes to show that you don't have to have expensive instruments to make really good sounds. And so just a couple of shakers and layer them in. And again, the other recorded sound is a suspended cymbal that I recorded. And then a bowed cymbal. Just really kind of those creepy sounds. All of the other sounds, including my little noise sweep here, these are stock Logic sounds, starting with my melodic instrument, which is a Celtic harp, just from, let's see if it shows up. Yeah. Celtic harp, the Logic marimba, which is really good. In this case, the African marimba. The piano, which is the Steinway Grand. Now, one of the things I like to do with the Steinway is keep the velocities really, really low. It makes it nice and dark because, well, it used to be on the EXS, and I think it still is. Yes, the velocity is set to the filter cutoff in Logic. So the harder you hit it, then the more the filter opens up. And this really helps to create the feeling of hammers, kind of compressing and getting a harder, more wooden sound. And so in a sense, it feels like it adds additional velocity layers that extend beyond the actual samples. The velocity samples, the mezzo forte all the way up to fortissimo, or however many number of samples are in the in the Steinway. And I wonder if I can actually see that. Yeah, version 1, version 2. Yeah, so it's not a terribly deep sampled piano, but because this library is patched with the velocity filter cutoff, then it works really, really well. And so played at lower velocities, you can get that kind of intimate piano sound. One of my favorite instruments in Logic is the Hong drum, or Hong, they call it the metal drum. And they have the palm, ping, and slap. Just kind of an ostinato there. I created an arpeggiated sound using this alchemy patch, which is Otherworldly Oceans, throwing on simple arpeggiator rather, but using a 5-note chord that I'm holding, and that creates a 5-note ostinato. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then a little bit. It sounds a little X-Filesy, but I think it works really well. I actually froze this track because it was giving me some problems. This is a RetroSyn bass pulse that is just the deep square bass, nothing at all fancy going on with this, but using the arpeggiator and making a 15-note pattern out of this. So if I did a 16th-note pattern or 16-note pattern, then the pattern becomes really apparent. But you make it a 15-note pattern, and the pattern kind of disappears. Especially when you put it in context of 4/4 with the click. And so I do this trick all the time, and I think I've talked about that. I talked about this in an episode before of the vlog, where I will take an arpeggiated pattern, make it an odd number of steps so that it creates syncopation. I did record my own guitar, and this is just my Baby Taylor acoustic. It's not a terribly fancy guitar, but I tuned it all the way down to B flat. And then just pitched it down in Logic, so it's transposed down to the step that it needed. So tuned it down, then pitched it down, because I wanted that kind of ethereal, really kind of almost like piano string sounds. This is a sound palette that I really enjoy from the Westworld soundtrack. Little palm muting as we're coming out of the down section. Piano, nice and low, just droning on, along with this marimba playing these low drones. I have this pad, which is slow swell shimmers, alchemy patch. I have some Indian percussion. Just to give a little bit of groove to the overall cue. I definitely, whenever I'm writing kind of tension cues, light tension cues, I think it's really important to add some sort of groove element, not to like turn it into a hip hop track or a rock track or something like that, but you put them all together, and that backbeat really kind of helps things move along. Now, as far as the form, we start off with our primary melody coming in. That's that Celtic harp. Hanging out on one chord this whole time. 2 bars in, we add a little bit. We do a little bit of 2-bar layering here. And this is nothing but a minor scale descending, starting on the and. Add my secondary idea. This is for a publisher search, and they specifically wanted kind of intrigue marimbas. First harmonic change is where the chords are changing underneath the melody. Back to the one chord. Scrapes at every phrase point. Suspended cymbals really pushing at big points, whether big harmonic changes or big structural changes. So we're about to go into my breakdown here. Bring in the secondary idea, this arpeggiated pad. It's like this bell kind of thing. Now add more. This is the energy building. A little edit point right here with a 2/4 bar, kind of a vacuum moment. E and 2 and down. Into the chord change. And then to tie everything off, I've got the piano. That descending scalar motion is now an ostinato, while the other descending scales are octaves above it. So everything comes together in this last measure into the into the button on the downbeat, the last downbeat of the measure. So as most modern DAWs, the sounds that come with the DAW are really, really good. And I've mentioned it before, how we're fast to kind of jump into and find the newest shiny, but so many times what we already have really, really works well. And so I definitely found that out with A Puzzle and a Paradox. Hopefully the library likes it and they take it on. So that is my cue for week 33. I hope that was helpful to check out. As I mentioned at the beginning, this channel would not be possible without the support of my Patreon patrons who give their actual real-life money to help keep things going here. To be a patron, it's just $1 and you get access to my exclusive patron-only music production live stream. So if you are interested in that, you can check out patreon.com/Dave Croft, and the link is below. That having been said, as a reminder, next Friday I will be offering a preview of my live stream, my live stream experience. And if you want to see me write a cue from scratch, maybe you're just curious about what that looks like, maybe you're curious about being a patron, then I encourage you to check that out. Even if you can't make it live, you can absolutely catch the archive afterwards. Also, as another reminder, this Friday, in just a couple of days, we have our Feedback Friday number 3. And if you want to participate in that, you can check out the link below. Head over to the 52 Cues Facebook group. And I didn't say this at the beginning because there's so many announcements. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, or liking the video, subscribing to the channel. It really helps composers just like you find me. So thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic week 34. Until next time, peace.